In this video, I'll go over what I refer to as the dual timelines, and then I'll share some additional thoughts. Now that you're familiar with the timeline I explained in part 1, we're going to use a more simplified version for this video. You'll see that I'm throwing out a second resurrection date of 1820, but the exact date has not yet been confirmed. So to begin, I believe that it's been easy for the enemy to deceive us about anything on the before Christ or BC timeline, because conveniently nothing is ever dated from this period. The people did not keep track of the year because there was really no anchor point. We can be told pretty much anything about artifacts from this time. I believe that the practice of keeping track of the year truly began in year 1 of the millennial kingdom. I believe this is the true meaning of AD, or the Latin phrase Anno Domini, which means in the year of the Lord. There's usually some variation of this phrase in old books and manuscripts. Because of the large amount of dated artifacts that have survived from the millennial kingdom, Satan has had to provide many cover stories for all of the evidence he couldn't destroy. He has told us that the phrase Anno Domini, or in the year of the Lord, means from the birth of Jesus. However, I believe that the true year 1 is the beginning of Jesus' kingdom here on earth. Since this period would last just 1,000 literal years, there was a reason to keep track of time, as you could say it serves as a countdown. During the kingdom, a 3-digit dating system was used, usually preceded by the letter I. It is believed that this letter I stands for Isus or Jesus, which means Jesus in Greek and Latin. There seems to be several other variations of the spelling and pronunciation of Jesus' name just within Latin alone, as well as other languages. Sometimes there are other characters that precede the 3-digit date, such as a J or lowercase I, as well as unfamiliar characters that may be derived from Greek, Aramaic, or Hebrew. One of the best ways I've found for finding examples of a non-numeric character in the year is by looking at genuine coins that have survived from the millennial kingdom. Here we have a coin that we would be told is from the year 1621. However, we see that the character in the first digit is different from the numeral 1 in the last digit, and therefore we can conclude that the first digit is not a numeral 1. Here we have another coin that we would be told is from the year 1700, but obviously the character in the first digit does not resemble a numeral 1, and there is a large space separating it from the 3-digit year. We can deduce that this coin is not from 1700, but the year 700 of the kingdom. Here we have another more subtle example, but we can see that the relief of the letter I in the date is more refined and congruent with the other letters, while the numerals are more consistent with each other. Again, we would be told that this artifact is from 1890, but I would determine the date on this coin reads I-890, meaning year 890 of the kingdom of Jesus. There are many more examples, and you'll have no trouble finding your own. It's one of those things where once you see it, you can't unsee it. Dating coins and other artifacts can be tricky, because beginning around the so-called 1800s, we begin to see artifacts that have been created by the enemy with a genuine numeral 1 in the first digit of the date. This is around the time that Satan was released from his prison and began the timeline deception. He began inserting false dates into all kinds of objects, including backdating inscriptions in books, on monuments and architecture, various works of art, and more. How exactly he pulled this off, I couldn't easily tell you. Lastly, one final example. If we had an object or event that was dated with the number 1900, that would be over here on the timeline, in our little season. But if we found an object that was dated I-900, that would actually fall back here in the late kingdom. Conversely, if we have a pre-reset date such as 1500, that is generally the same year as I-500. If it seems a little confusing, well, it was meant to be, but you'll get the hang of it. In addition to the numeric dating system, the year was also commonly denoted in what we call Roman numerals. I have a feeling that perhaps Roman numerals are to be interpreted a little differently than what we've been told, but that's not something I'll be investigating right now. If you're someone who researches these sorts of things, then you're aware of what is regarded as the 1,000 years of added history that's been injected into our timeline. In all actuality, it appears to be about 800 to 850 years. I believe the entire reason that Satan has added approximately 800 years into our timeline is to once again provide a cover story for the things he couldn't destroy. As I showed just a couple examples of, there are innumerable artifacts that have the letter I or J preceding the year. We are told that an artifact dated I 500 would be the year 1500, but by doing so, a lot of fake and exaggerated history will need to be added in. This is all in a huge effort to hide the millennial kingdom from the people of our time. The more you learn about the true nature of our past, the more profoundly obvious it is that Jesus Christ is the ultimate truth, and it would definitely be a lot harder to go out and deceive the nations if we all understood we were riding off the coattails of Christ's kingdom. So with that being said, I believe that we're actually in approximately the year 1200. A more precise date can only be pinpointed by figuring out the exact year in the false timeline that the so-called reset took place. If year 1 truly begins with the start of the millennial kingdom, then 1,000 years have passed, plus the 200 or so years that we are already into the little season, putting us in approximately the year 1200. If we were to continue to base time off of the birth of Christ, then you would just add 70 years.
Man, that is crazy how they can manipulate the timelines like that, and you can find old coins or old buildings with the J or the I. And it makes you question things because they'll tell you, oh, that was 1800s, but it really wasn't. It was 800. So then what year are we really living in?